Good morning, everybody, and happy early Halloween for this weekend. I'm sure everybody will be busy with kids in your neighborhoods for those that live in neighborhoods. Today is the Ohio Federal Research Network Opportunity Days. I apologize. I was trying to think of how many we've done so far. I think this is our second or third, probably third Opportunity Day that we've done so far for our collaborators throughout the state of Ohio. We're looking forward to some really great speakers today. So if you could go to the next slide, please. We'll hit the agenda here real quick and some general starting points for everything that just to make sure that everybody kind of understands how we run these programs. So we have a dedicated tech support team that you can call, and that's Emma Warner and Becky Mesher, excuse me. And so if you have problems during the meeting today, the Opportunity Day, you can use the chat feature to let them know that you're having problems, and they'll do their best to try to help out with any issues that you have. For some of you out there that, like me, that went through massive updates for all of my Mac systems yesterday, I'm hoping that it doesn't decide to crash on me today, because it did last night when I was using it. So we'll keep our fingers crossed for that. During today's Q&A session that you see there from 10:30 to 11:15, you can either use the raise hand feature, and Becky or Emma will take you off mute, and you can ask your question directly to one of our presenters. If you would prefer to use the chat function, that's fine. I would ask, though, that if the question is very specific to one of the presenters, that you list the presenter's name at the beginning of your text as you type it there for the chat. You can use the @ or the ampersand in either the first or the last name of the presenter, because we don't have any duplicates for today. So that'll make it easy for us to figure out who your question is pointed towards for that. And if for some reason we're unable to get to your question today, we'll do the best that we can to follow up with an answer after the event is over with. And as an aside, the event is, of course, being recorded today, so you'll have access to the recording if you'd like to go back and listen to one of our speakers talk about their particular subject for today. Next slide, please. So real quickly, I'm your MC for today. I spent 37 years in the United States Air Force in the Ohio National Guard, and I'm a consultant now for Parallax Advanced Research and the Ohio Federal Research Network. My last duty assignment was as the Adjutant General for the state of Ohio under Governor Kasich. Our Parallax team today, as I mentioned, our two experts that are helping us run this program today is Becky Mesher and Emma Warner. Jess Pacheco and Karen Posey, one of our other consultants, is here today, as well as Matt Bush, who's the Director for Strategic Development for Parallax. And you'll hear him actually towards the end of the program today with some specific opportunities that he thinks that you all might be interested in. Our networking support from this morning, if you were in one of the breakout rooms, you got to listen to either Dr. Daryl Lochtefeld or Dr. Dave Rude, both incredibly knowledgeable and talented individuals that work for Parallax and help us out with the networking today. And of course, our event speakers today, we have, and this is an old slide. Sorry, I apologize. The names are in a little bit different order than the slide set that I have here. So Daryl Phillipson from the Air Force Research Lab, Don Emerson from NASA Glenn, and Ned Hill from Ohio State University. And we also have Dr. Bill Berenstein, who's joining us as well from Air Force Research Lab. And then, of course, our government partners, Air Force Research Lab, the NAMRD, NASA up at Glenn, NASIC, and the Ohio National Guard. Next slide, please. So very quickly, I just wanted to go through a couple of updates. For those of you maybe that are not familiar with Parallax, the diagram on the left is probably the easiest way to maybe understand what it is that Parallax does. So it's a 501c3 nonprofit organization. It's what's called a triple helix organization. So the goal for Parallax, right, is to connect academia, industry to government for opportunities for funding. And also, of course, to further develop technologies and help the innovation and entrepreneurship mindset that we have here in the state of Ohio. Of course, our main goals are to support, engage, and collaborate all of the customers that we have across the state, and to develop the new research and development business and funding throughout the state of Ohio. And as I mentioned, of course, we're going to do the best we can to help build Ohio's entrepreneurship and the startup business. Next slide, please. This graphic, the three circles that you see there actually came out of a 2018 report from the Ohio Chamber of Commerce, talking about how to further develop the economy, the technology-based economy here in the state of Ohio. And they felt that the three best ways to do that, of course, was through research and development. Number one, enhance productivity and value added for the existing industry, and technology commercialization. And I think that matches up fairly well, actually, with the goals of the Ohio Federal Research Network. What you see in those red arrows that are pointing to each one of those circles are a summary of the first 5 rounds so far that we have been able to fund with the help of the state of Ohio and the Ohio Department of Higher Education. And just as a highlight items, and again, these slides are available later on for you to go back and look at if you like any specific details for it. But we feel we've been incredibly successful on all of these areas, and particularly follow-on funding from the federal government to our partners here in the state of Ohio is over $350 million so far through these first 5 rounds. We're in the process right now of starting to work on round 6, and I'll mention that again here in just a second. So far, we've funded a total of 35 projects through those 5 rounds, and over almost $35 million in industry-sponsored research out there. And you can see some of the other highlights that we have with the number of direct jobs that have been generated through those first 5 rounds. So very successful, at least in my opinion. Next slide, please. So this is the graphic on your right, and if Becky or Emma, if you could throw the link into the chat, I would appreciate it. But the graphic on your right is a way to illustrate the partners and the teams that have been put together through these first 5 rounds of funding for the Ohio Federal Research Network. If you go to the link, you will see that each one of those items that are listed under the categories is a interactive link that'll take you to the web page that'll give you more detail on what that particular project was about, and the outcomes from that particular team that worked on that project. So an interesting way to kind of see exactly what it is that we've done over those first 5 rounds. The federal partners areas of interest that are listed on the left was for round 5. So those will most likely be changing here for round 6 as we work with our federal partners to determine what the future is going to be for their areas of interest. Next slide, please. This is just an example of some of the successes that we've had through those first 5 rounds. Not all inclusive, but you can obviously see that one of the spinouts or startup companies, Tanger and Flex, that was spun out of Galwa, has been very successful in their ability to get additional funding from the United States Air Force in particular. Next slide, please. So I mentioned a little bit ago round 6, which is coming up here in the near future. The total amount, of course, is yet to be determined. That will be worked through both the governor's budget, which will not be sent to the state legislature until mid-February. And then, of course, our legislative elected officials will have time to work on the budget before it has to be signed into law by the end of June 30th of 2023. But we should have a pretty good idea of where the funding stands. And so as we look across the landscape and we talk to our federal partners, those bubbles that you see around the outside of this particular graphic are examples of some potential items that might be areas of interest for the federal partners. And so if you have a particular, specific interest in any of these types of areas that you see on the slide here, feel free to provide that information back to us It's always good for us to also have an idea as to what our partners are interested in small business and industry, so that we can make sure that we're sort of working together to address all of the issues for the state of Ohio to make us the more successful and obviously the best state in the union. Next slide, please. So with some upcoming events, there'll be another opportunity day towards the end of January, and that'll be virtual. The next one is one that you definitely want to make sure that you get on your calendars, is April the 12th of 2023. There'll be an in-person opportunity day at the State House in the atrium, and we'll be having all of our OFRN teams and partners hopefully there to present on their projects that they're working on, and also have some booths set up for you to see and have some hands-on opportunity for some of these different technologies that are being developed. There are two other opportunities coming up at Ohio State. One on March the 28th, which will be their Sustainability in Aviation Forum, and there'll be more coming out on that as we get a little bit closer to that date, and the Ohio Air Mobility Symposium on March the 29th and 30th at Ohio State. That'll be, I think, either the third or the fourth opportunity to be able to get people together to talk about advanced air mobility. So if you have any interest in that area, I would definitely have those dates on your calendar as well.